Namaste everyone, welcome back to Suvi English channel. In today's video, I am going to discuss a very interesting novel, Karvalo, written by a very popular Kannada writer, Poornachandra Tejaswi. Poornachandra Tejaswi was popular not just because he was the son of Kuvempu. He was popular because of his outstanding achievements as a writer. He evolved as a creative writer in the Kannada literature, and he was not only a writer, he was a photographer, he was a naturalist, he was an environmentalist, and he was a great lover of nature. And some of his notable works are Carvalo, Chidambara Rahasya, Jugari Cross, and Abachurina Post Office. And this novel, Carvalo, was published in the year 1980, and it has got a wonderful storyline. And this novel is set in a hilly land of Karnataka, Mudigere of Chikmagaluru district. And we see the beautiful lifestyle of Malenadu people in this novel. And before we start our discussion on this novel, let's look at the characters of this novel. The first and foremost important character of this novel is narrator. Who is the narrator? Poornachandra Tejaswi is the narrator of this novel. So he plays an important role in this novel. And the second important character of this novel is Carvalo. Carvalo is a scientist who works in a paddy research center, Mudigere Paddy Research Center. So he is the second important character, and we see two more interesting characters in this novel, Mandana and Lakshmana. They work at Mudigere Beekeeper Society as temporary beekeepers. They work there on contract basis. It's not a government job, permanent job. They work there as temporary employees. And we have one more important character, Pyara. Who is Pyara? Pyara is a kitchen assistant at narrator's house. And we have a photographer in this novel. His name is Prabhakara, and he also plays an important role in this novel. And we have a special character, non-human character, that's Kiwi. Kiwi is narrator's pet dog. So it's a white spaniel dog. Its name is Kiwi. So the Kiwi also plays an important role in this novel. So these are the important characters of the novel. There are some more characters in this novel. As the story progresses, we will meet them and we will study about all those characters. Now let's start our discussion. The novel Karvalo begins at Mudigere Beekeeper Society. This is the first scene of our novel. It begins at Mudigere Beekeeper Society as the narrator goes there to buy some honey. The narrator wanted to buy some honey. He had 70 rupees. He wanted to buy 7 bottles of honey. As he goes there, he meets two persons at the society. One was Mandana, the other was Lakshmana. When he meets them, the two staff, Mandana and Lakshmana, advise the narrator to buy a tin full of honey instead of buying the 7 bottles. The tin of honey would cost him only 78 rupees. And the reason for that low price was that there is a special tree called Gurgi in Malenadu, the hilly land of Karnataka. And the speciality of that Gurgi tree is it blooms, it flowers only once in 8 years. And that year, that Gurgi trees in Malenadu had bloomed in abundance, and there was unexpected increase in the production of honey. So because of more flora, because of more flowers, availability of the flowers, honeybees could get the nectar, and the farmers, the beekeepers, could see the unexpected increase in the production of honey. So that is how this tin of honey is made available at rupees only 78. And the narrator buys the tin full of honey, and that's how the narrator meets Mandana and Lakshmana. And when he goes home with the tin, Pyara guesses that it is coconut oil because it was looking exactly like coconut oil. Who is Pyara? Pyara is a Muslim boy who works as a kitchen assistant at narrator's house. How come he is there in the narrator's house? Pyara once he was arrested by the police on accusation of pickpocketing, and he was put in remand for 6 months. And after his release, the narrator gave him shelter, and that's how Pyara becomes a kitchen assistant at narrator's house. And he was also assisting the narrator in his field. The narrator had some paddy crops, paddy field, and cardamom plantation, coffee plantation. So Pyara was assisting him. Pyara was helping the narrator in his agriculture also. This is about Pyara. And as the novel progresses, once we see Mandana visiting narrator to take some help from him. Mandana wanted to submit a letter of application to the minister for the post of a beeman, permanent post at Beekeeper Society. So he requested the narrator to draft a letter of application because the minister was expected to visit Mudigere on August 15th for flag hoisting program. So it was a great opportunity for Mandana to submit his letter in person to the minister. And Mandana desperately wanted a job because he wanted to get married. Nobody was ready to give a bride to Mandana because he was jobless. So he wanted a job very desperately. The narrator helps him drafting the letter, and on August 15th, the minister arrives for the flag hoisting program, and the flag hoisting program was to happen at Mudigere Taluk office. Mandana goes to Mudigere Taluk office not only to submit his letter but also to give guard of honor to the guests. Mandana and his friends were ready with their band set to welcome the guests and to give the guard of honor to them. And as the minister arrives at the Taluk office, Mandana starts beating his drum band set. And unfortunately, there were some wild beehives on the walls of the Taluk office. And when he starts beating the drums, the wild honeybees are disturbed and they are provoked and they start attacking all the people, including the minister. The minister falls unconscious and he is taken to the hospital immediately. So Mandana does not submit his letter of application to the minister. So this is all about the August 15th incident in this novel. And after a few days, the narrator decides to meet Karvalo. Karvalo is very important character in this novel. So the narrator decides to meet this Karvalo to discuss some problems related to his paddy crops. Who is Karvalo? Karvalo is the scientist who is working at Paddy Research Center, Mudigere Paddy Research Center. He is the only gazetted officer in Mudigere. The narrator wanted to meet Karvalo because recently his paddy crops were completely attacked by some strange insects, and the narrator tried with some pesticides. He spent some money, but he could not get rid of that problem. So he decides to meet Carvalo and take some advice from him. And he explains all his problems and he describes the kind of problem that he was facing with the paddy crops. And later, after listening to narrator's description, Carvalho guesses that they are armyworms. And those armyworms hide inside the water, inside the stem of the paddy plant, and they are not affected by any pesticides. So that's how they hide and they attack all the paddy plants. Carvalho advises the narrator to drain away all the water so that those insects can be easily spotted and they can be attacked. And the narrator goes home and he does as he is directed by the scientist. And it works very effectively, and after getting the results, narrator again goes to the office, Carvalho's office, to thank him, and that's how they become friends. And the narrator also learns that Mandana, whom he met at Mudigere Beekeeper Society, so that Mandana is the disciple of Karvalo. He learns that Mandana is the assistant of Karvalo. Mandana is actually a born naturalist. He is a great observer and he has very great knowledge about nature, some plants, animals, insects. Carvalo used to take Mandana along with him to the forest, to the fields, to study about some insects. And once Carvalo takes Mandana to the forest to study about coneworm and glowworm. They go to forest, spend 1 week's time, so 7 days they were in forest. They had their tent, and after coming back from forest, Carvalho shows all about his experiments to the narrator. And as the novel progresses, after a few days, the narrator takes a decision. He decides to sell his property in Mudigere because of some losses. He was experiencing losses in agriculture. He had taken some loans from the bank and he had to repay the loans, but he was not generating any income, any revenue from agriculture. So he decides to sell his property and repay the loans. So once he was explaining all about his property to a buyer. A buyer had come to purchase the land. So he was explaining all about the property details. And that's when narrator learns that the Kiwi, his favorite dog, Kiwi, is lost in the forest. The narrator and his family members were very attached to this dog, Kiwi, a white spaniel dog, Kiwi. So they were attached to this animal. And he learns that it is in danger, it is lost in forest. So the narrator and Pyara go to forest in search of Kiwi. And luckily they find their dog in the forest and it was barking at something. What was it barking at? It was barking at an earthen pot in which some honeybees were there. The narrator decides to take some help from Mandana to extract honey and to shift the bees from pot to bee box. And Mandana promises the narrator that he would extract honey and shift the bees from pot to bee box, so that narrator also can start beekeeping. And after a few days, the narrator comes to know that Mandana is very disappointed in his life. Mandana wanted to get married with a girl called Rami. Rami is Narve Ramaya's daughter. So Mandana wanted to marry this girl called Rami. But Rami's father, Narve Ramaya, does not want to give his daughter to Mandana because he is jobless. And later, Karvalo, narrator, Mandana's friend Lakshmana, they all try to arrange Mandana's marriage with Rami. And Prabhakara, who is the photographer in this novel, so he also helps Mandana by clicking the photos of his marriage, his wedding. Prabhakara was a radio mechanic in Chikmagaluru before starting his studio in Mudigere. Later, he came to Mudigere and started his photo studio. And Karvalo sometimes takes Prabhakara's help in his research. He takes him to the field visit and forest along with him, and Prabhakara goes and takes some pictures, videos, and that's how Prabhakara is helpful to Karvalo. And after his marriage, Mandana goes to the narrator's house with some bee boxes because he had promised the narrator that he would extract honey and shift the bees from pot to bee box. So he goes there with some bee boxes and they all go to forest where they had seen a pot in which some honeybees were there. So they go to forest and Mandana extracts the honey and shifts the bees from pot to bee box. And after shifting the bees, Mandana carries that empty pot. He wanted that empty pot and he takes that empty pot along with him. And later, Mandana is arrested by the police because of that pot. The police suspect that the pot is being used for preparing the illegal liquor. They think that it is used for preparing some liquor, so he is arrested. And the police accuse Mandana that he is involved in some illegal brewing cases, illegal liquor activities, that is preparing and selling the illegal liquor. So he is arrested, and after that, narrator on humanitarian grounds gives him surety, and Mandana is released from the jail on bail. And Karvalo also comes to know about Mandana's arrest, and he decides to appoint a lawyer, a very famous criminal lawyer, Cyril Gonzalez. Carvalo takes this risk because he needs Mandana's help very desperately. Because Carvalho was studying, he was doing a research on a very unusual animal called flying lizard. That flying lizard was believed to be there millions of years ago on this earth, and now it is not present. So this is what many scientists have believed. And Carvalho wanted to prove that that flying lizard is still present and it is still alive on this earth, and he wanted to prove that. So he was doing some research in the forests of Norway, in the forests of Malenadu, Chikmagaluru, Mudigere, and in order to complete his research he needs Mandana's help very desperately. So that was the reason why he takes that risk to appoint a very famous criminal lawyer in Chikmagaluru, Cyril Gonzalez. And in the court, the lawyer Cyril Gonzalez makes his arguments, and after hearing arguments and counter arguments, finally the court declares that Mandana is innocent. And after Mandana's release, Carvalho takes the narrator, Prabhakara, Mandana to the forest in search of that flying lizard. So Carvalho wanted to search, he wanted to find that flying lizard, and Mandana knows about it because Mandana always spends most of his times in forest. He has a great knowledge about the animals, the insects. So he takes Mandana's help in this research. So Karvalu, narrator, Prabhakara, Mandana. So they all go to forest in search of that flying lizard, and they also take an expert cook called Biryani Karyappa along with them in order to prepare some food, and also they needed a very good, an excellent tree climber. So Karyappa was very excellent tree climber, so they needed that kind of person, so they take Karyappa along with them. They start their journey, they start their adventure, and they hire a bullock cart to go to the forest. They decide to have their camps in the forest, and during their adventure they experience the beautiful places in the forest. It's a wonderful experience for all of them. They see some beautiful trees, tall trees, some beautiful butterflies, animals, some wild flowers, mountains and streams. So they experience all that beauty and the glory of that nature, and they have their camps in the forest, and they sometimes hunt some wild animals and prepare some food. And for a few days they do not find any glimpse of that flying lizard, and at last one fine day the narrator observes this flying lizard eating some ants in the tree, and immediately he calls Prabhakara, and Prabhakara takes the photos and videos. And later Carvalho is very happy because they finally get the glimpse of that flying lizard, and they all ask Biryani Karyappa to climb the tree, and Biryani Karyappa tried to catch that flying lizard, but unfortunately they cannot get hold of that flying lizard. It slips off from his hand, but they could get the glimpse of the flying lizard. They could take some photos, they could take some videos, and with that proof Carvalho attends a conference, and he declares, he proves that that flying lizard is still alive on this earth, and he appreciates his team members, narrator, Prabhakara, Mandana, Karyappa, for their help and for their support. And with this, the novel ends. Thank you.